Welcome to CARDESIGN.ACADEMY and the continuation of my series on rendering automotive interiors over 3D model screenshots. In this case, this is a sports car interior for a sexy Italian sports coupe that I designed in Gravity Sketch. As you can see, I've taken my original data layer and I'm doing a quick overlay sketch. This is a technique that I use frequently to take 3D data and give it a bit of artistry, much more of a sketched quality, to make it look almost as if it were hand sketched. But all of the hard work of setting up the proper perspective and getting all of the objects properly drawn within that perspective environment, all of that work's been done. All of the hard work of light and shadow and form and surface and even color, all of that work's been done in the data. And by having a great model to work with, I can sketch the same interior from multiple points of view. So the concept for this interior is really about this duality of the driver, this very driver-focused cockpit, which is almost has the experience of sitting in a single-seat race car, like an F1 car. So you have this instrument binnacle that surrounds, blends into the door, and it completely surrounds the driver. And the passenger, meanwhile, has a much different experience. So the passenger is experiencing something much more akin to sitting in a limousine. So they have a table, a footrest, much more relaxed, open air quality ahead of them. So that was the basis for this design, and I'm very excited about it. Also, this car being that the concept is for it to be electric, a battery electric. The battery pack is running through the center tunnel of the interior, so it's got this very deep, very pronounced tunnel in order to make room for a large battery pack. And so the seats are kind of nestled in between the door and the center spine, which so that the bottom half of the seat is essentially just a bucket that resides within that space, just a piece of fixed padding. Meanwhile, the top portion of the seat, so the back half of it, is protruding above that main floor surface. And as you can see, I'm adding some embellishments and details like this diamond stitching in the door panel. And in the sketch layer, I'm just bringing out all of the details and adding a bit of artistry there. I'm adding some additional stitch lines to give the sense that this surrounding cockpit is comprised of different materials stitched together in a very highly crafted way. So you can see I'm sketching over the top portion of that seat bucket. So that upper half of the seat is the part that protrudes above the load floor of the trunk area, and then the bottom half of the seat is just a piece of fixed trim that's nestled within a bucket, like a monocoque bucket that's molded into the floor. And adding some stitch lines and embellishments. I chose this perspective to really highlight the surface and detailing of the seats. Because it's really more about the seating concept than it is even about the steering concept. So in the previous demo, I did a close-up view of the steering cockpit of the control center as the focal point for the driver. There you can see the paddle shifter floating just behind the steering wheel. So next I'm just sketching over the passenger seat. which, in the upper portion of it, and the main bucket is symmetrical to the driver's seat, but then there's the additional footrest that proceeds below the front of the seat. That could be an adjustable footrest to give them a more relaxed experience. As you can see, I'm also starting to sketch out some cast shadows. Cast shadows are very important for bringing additional dimension to the interior. So based on where the light source is coming from, I'm projecting shadows of the seats onto the rear cargo floor. Also, the table is projecting a shadow onto the footrest and onto the floor. And as you can see, I'm able to visually describe the sectioning of that center tunnel as it rises up just below that table surface, and it's just by how I vary the thickness of that shadow. You can see I've also added an outline for a shadow of the steering wheel onto the front driver's seat. Adding some very, very slim shadows where the seat, the lower portion of the seat meets the bucket. It's just right there against the surface. So now I'm taking the main data layer, bringing back the opacity to about 90%. And now I'm starting to fill in those shadows. And you'll see how very quickly it gets very, very dimensional. I really love working in Gravity Sketch when it comes to designing interiors. In this case, I did not do a single sketch before proceeding to 3D. I developed this interior entirely in 3D using Gravity Sketch, only with a simple idea, and that was the duality of the driver and the passenger. It started with the exterior of the vehicle, which I had done quite a bit of sketching on. And you can see in some of my previous demos. But once I did that, once I was ready to proceed with the interior, a lot of the work went into just developing that tub that mates itself to the outer skin of the vehicle, plus it houses that battery pack. So I knew by setting those architectural points and establishing the location of the driver and the steering wheel that a lot of those elements would be resolved very quickly. So then I just went right ahead in Gravity Sketch with creating this visual theme, which is it's a visual overlay of that generic tub. Just sort of layering components in order to create flow and also to create that sense of duality in the function of the driver and the passenger. So you can see as I fill in the shadows, the offset of one object to another determines the width of the shadow. And so you can see I'm varying the thickness of that shadow to define the distance from one component to another. So in the case of the table, as it runs over the footrest, and then the shadow drops to the floor level, which is just below the footrest, but then it steps back up to where the center battery pack spine is. And you can see there's a minimal offset there. So it really helps bring dimension to that interior image. You can see I'm also adding a small cast shadow just below the door trim. And I'm filling in the cast shadow of the seat as it projects itself onto the rear cargo floor. So now I'm going in with an airbrush and I'm adding a little bit more depth to the form of the door panel, just to enhance the surfacing. And then adding a little bit of white airbrush in some of the highlight areas. And then I bring in my noise brush. And the noise brush is a way of adding a bit of texture and tactility to everything. So you can see I'm just running over everything with a very, very subtle noise texture. It gives everything a much more grainy, tactile quality. It also helps to take it further and further away from looking like a computer-generated image and more like a hand-drawn sketch. Another great thing about working over data is that when you do sell that hot sketch and they're ready to start building a model of it, you already have the data exactly as you sketched it. One of the things I forgot to do was to sketch out the cast shadow of the steering wheel onto the seat, so I'm just going ahead and filling that in very quickly. I'm just going to take a soft eraser and back it off a little bit. And after that, I just go in with my white pencil and my dark pencil, and I just add some subtle sketch embellishments, sign the sketch, and there you have a very beautiful sketched automotive interior.